This week's good news story features a local man who has given 40 years voluntary service to a vitally important organisation here in the Causeway coast area. We're talking about Coleraine Coastguard and one of their most experienced and skilled officers, Chris Little. Chris, I think it's important to say that in spite of the 40 years voluntary service, you're not actually retiring at the moment, is that correct?
No, definitely not, Dennis. I've been at quite a few call-outs in the last week. We're still going on. There's a tradition of long service within the Coast Guard, and 40 years is definitely a milestone, but it's not the end.
Can you remember back to maybe some of your early days? Because we must be talking, 1980?
Absolutely. I had just left school in 1980. My two brothers had just completed a period of service with the Coast Guard as part of the Duke of Edinburgh, and they had decided to join, and actually all three of us joined together with the minimum of fuss, very little in the way of interview or aptitude test, and they remained in the team for 30 years, so quite often we turned out to rescues alongside each other. And
clearly, I'm guessing, Chris, that the Coast Guard would say at the heart of what they do lies the idea of saving and looking out for and looking after people. But I'm wondering, has the whole structure, the guidance, the guidelines, has that all changed drastically or dramatically in 40 years?
Well, the mission is still the same, to try and prevent people getting into difficulty and to try and rescue those who do. That really hasn't changed. The means of doing it, the communication systems, the vehicles, the equipment, all of that really has changed beyond all recognition. But at the heart of it all really is a team of people who are prepared to drop everything at a moment's notice and turn out day or night. That really hasn't changed. The voluntary aspect of it remains very, very strong.
For someone who is listening to this wee interview on Causeway Coast Radio, I wonder, what can you say that might convince somebody to get in touch with the Coast Guard and at the very least maybe find out a wee bit more and maybe even join?
Well, you can find out quite a lot now online. I mean, obviously when I joined in 1980 we could only ever dream of computers, but you can actually now find out a lot about the Coast Guard Rescue Service online in the normal government sites.
Yes.
We don't recruit very often now. We recruit once a year, and really it's advertised in social media and in the press when we do. In the olden days and for a long time we could take people on as and when we needed them, but now recruitment has changed and we take them on because the training is much more intense now. Yes. There is a full week's training before you take up, whereas before the training was on the job. But it is a very worthwhile, like all volunteering is a brilliant thing to do, whether it's on the coast or in some other facet of life. But it gives you a chance to put something back into the community, to work with a like-minded group of people, and to do something worthwhile that will challenge you mentally, physically, and you will develop as a result of being able to help other people. But at the heart of it really is trying to do something to help others.
And to what extent, I wonder, Chris, is there a fear factor or an excitement factor when you get a call out?
Well, there would be both. When I was growing up, I was always told to fear the sea by everybody I met, my parents, the fishermen, the local fishermen. I grew up at the harbour in Portrush, so I was exposed to that sort of talk quite often. And you do have to respect the sea, because when you don't, that's when accidents happen. Obviously, when there is an alert now, your adrenaline does kick in and your heart rate goes up very, very considerably, because you can never really tell when call-outs will happen. You can suspect when they'll happen, but they will always happen when you're doing something else. So therefore they will take you by surprise. There is a short time, obviously, to get to the station or to get to the scene. Now our call-out system is so sophisticated that we will actually get a message through to our mobile phone or even your watch, which will tell you what the incident is and where it is. So the one that really, the two that really would be most urgent would be a person who's gone over the cliff or is stuck on a cliff, and a person in the water, and then really the adrenaline kicks in to try and get there in time to help.
And I think, am I right in saying now you had 2 commendations for bravery, one of which might have been a cliff edge or thereabouts at Carrickrood, and the other was for someone in the water in Portrush. Is that right?
Yeah, but I would have to say, although the commendations are awarded like that, it is all to do with teamwork. The first one was an individual commendation in April '93 for the rescue of a woman who was very clearly drowning near the rocks at the Arcadia. And on that occasion, I had gone to the scene with some of my colleagues. We'd also alerted the inshore lifeboat, but really the only option, the quickest option, was for someone to go into the water. So we decided to do what we call a snatch rescue, where you put on a special type of life jacket. You're secured to the shore by a safety line, and you simply jump in, but there's no time to change into to protect the clothing or anything like that. And you simply grab the person. On this occasion, I was lucky to get her just as she disappeared below the water, and she was taken to hospital afterwards. The other one on July 14 was a very big operation involving both the Coleraine Coastguard team and Ballycastle team. For two kayakers who had come to grief at the rope bridge. They'd actually come ashore at the rocks below the bridge, below the island itself. So the rescue itself was a rope rescue, but it was made more complicated by the fact that every piece of equipment had to be taken across the rope bridge, and that's a lot of equipment: heavy steel stakes, ropes, a very large winch, and so on. All of that had to be taken over, and then the operation could begin. So that was an award that was made to all the team members who took part. But rescue work is very much teamwork.
And listen, just finally, Chris, thank you for your time, but I have to say, I see so many posts, and of late I think I've seen an awful lot of posts on Facebook, call-outs for Coleraine Coastguard, yourself and the rest of the team there. What advice would you like people to listen to when they're either living on or up visiting this coastline that we have here, this beautiful coastline? What on earth advice do we need to take heed of?
Well, I think you need to know the dangers and know how to avoid them, and not take unnecessary risk. A lot of the problems we've had in the last couple of weeks involving 11 different people who got into difficulty in swimming incidents have been people who've been caught in rip currents. Now, the locals are very well aware of rip currents in most cases, and these are narrow areas of water that flow out from the shore, whereas the waves are breaking, they're actually going out. And we've had people who have jumped in to swim and found themselves being carried out. So really it's a case of swimming where it's safest. If you don't know where the risks are, then really don't go in there. Stay within the lifeguarded areas, the red and yellow flags, and there you will be much, much safer. As far as cliffs go, you really can't climb cliffs without the proper equipment and training. That was really hazardous. And for any other sort of sport or sea activity or boating, make sure that you have all the equipment before you set out on it, because to discover you suddenly need something when you're out there and in difficulty is too late. And never go swimming at night or somewhere where no one knows you are, because if you get into difficulty, it'll be very hard to find you. And in any case, please do what the local population are very good at doing. If you see someone in difficulty at sea or on the coast, please dial 999 and ask for the Coastguard.
Chris Little, sound advice indeed, and thank you very, very much indeed for chatting to us on Causeway Coast Radio.
My pleasure, Dennis.
A quite remarkable man, a remarkable story, and a man who has been there for many when they have found themselves in a difficult or dangerous situation along our coastline. Chris Little, Coleraine Coastguard, for 40 years service, you are this week's good news story on Causeway Coast Radio.